What I've noticed about negative self-talk is that it really hinders me and holds me back from doing all of the things that God probably has for me to do in this life. It keeps me from speaking up when I need to speak up. It keeps me from getting into new ventures that might seem a little intimidating, but could really be rewarding. I've noticed the same thing with the women that I work with in my Mastering Emotions program, that they have a lot of negative self-talk that keeps them from sharing with the people that they love just how they feel and what they need from the relationship, what their emotional needs are and their physical needs are. It also holds them back from trying new things and sharing who they are with others and developing close relationships. Well, how about you? How has negative self-talk impacted you? Well, today we are going to look at 5 steps to stop negative self-talk so that you can be much more free to live the life that you want to live, to be able to have the relationships that you would like to see and do the things that you would like to do without having your own words hold you back. Well, if you don't know me, let me introduce myself. My name is Tawnya Kordenbrock, and I'm the person behind arenewedlife.com. I, for years, was a licensed professional clinical counselor, but right now I am working with women online in my Mastering Emotions program to rewire their brains so that they can break free from fear, anger, and shame to be able to love themselves, feel loved by others, and have a deeper relationship with God. Now, I hope right now that you will go ahead and click that subscribe button, but also stay to the end of this video because I have a free resource for you that I am going to tell you about. Now, let's begin with the first of the 5 steps in stopping negative self-talk. And this step, first one, is to understand where negative self-talk is coming from. And I think, we could say that it definitely is a habit because you've probably noticed that you've been doing this for a long time, that you probably would agree, well, you have a habit of always being negative about yourself, or negative about activities that you might want to get involved in, negative about what other people think of you. And so if that is the case, then what that also means is that you have a neurological pattern, a pattern within your brain where the neurons fire down a certain direction, and they are used to going in that direction so that they have literally created grooves in your brain. And so that when you encounter a situation that you are concerned about, then it is very easy for the emotional part of your brain to trigger those same thoughts that it always triggers. And so it just kicks in very quickly, and before you know it, as soon as you're feeling that emotion, then those thoughts are just right on the tail of the emotions. So why is it important to understand this? Well, if you know that it is a pattern then that has been learned, then you can also know and you can feel confident that it's a pattern that can be unlearned and that you can learn new patterns with practice. Now let's look at step number 2, which is to recognize and understand the reason for the emotions you are feeling. Almost always when we have negative self-talk, then there is an emotion behind that. What I have noticed, well, not almost always, but there always is. And what I have noticed with the women that I have worked with in my Mastering Emotions program is the emotion of fear is almost always behind negative self-talk. Now, what is this fear? It could be a fear of rejection, that you don't want to say something or do something to have others have a negative viewpoint of you and therefore not want to be in relationship with you or not be as close as they were. It could be a fear of looking foolish. And then, that fear of foolish probably also goes back to then a fear of rejection. You could have a fear of failure. And so it's important to know why this is significant for you. A fear of failure then could mean that you also believe that if you aren't perfect or if you aren't at a certain level of performance, then you are unacceptable. And that's painful. And so it's good to know that that is there, that it's behind why you're having the negative self-talk. Then again, there could be a fear of causing harm, that there is something innately wrong with you or that is just not right, that that your words and your actions are going to land on others and affect their lives and cause irreparable harm. And then, this goes back to your own view of yourself and what you have learned about yourself in the developmental period of your life. And so why is all of this important to know about the emotions that you're feeling and why they're there? If you don't recognize the underlying emotions, then you aren't going to be able to change this pattern, because emotion, especially emotion of fear, is very powerful and it will kick in an automatic response. So if you don't address the fear and the beliefs that go with it, then that fear is going to drive this pattern and continue to cause you to act in the same way that you always have with your negative self-talk. The third step then is to recognize your negative self-talk. And truthfully, a lot of times we are so frequently using negative self-talk that we don't notice it happening anymore. It almost feels like a part of us, that it's something that naturally happens. And others may notice it. Others may get upset and say, oh, you're so negative, or why are you always putting yourself down? Why are you always so fearful that things aren't going to work out for you? But you don't notice it yourself. And truthfully, if you don't notice it yourself, and especially if you don't notice it right when it's happening, then you're not going to be able to change this pattern. So one of the things that I recommend you do is on a daily basis to keep a journal or a chart concerning how you talked about yourself during the day or the thoughts that you had. And so keep a journal of the negative self-talk that you had throughout the day and look at what it is that you're saying. Look at what the emotions were, probably fear that was behind it, but also fear of what? What are the beliefs that go along with that fear? Now, as you track this on a regular basis and writing it down, that causes you to pause and to think about it. It gives you more awareness of it, so that when it is happening in real time, it will be more at the forefront of your mind, and you will be more likely to notice it and to be able to say, oh, there I am doing this again. here I am, my fear is kicking in this pattern. And part of this pattern is that I have this negative self-talk. Step 4 is to have some sympathy for yourself, or the empathize with yourself. When you consider the emotion of fear and the beliefs that go along with that, what do you think about that? What do you think that you have that present within you, that feeling of fear? What do you think about that you have those beliefs within you, that people won't accept you, that people are going to reject you, that there's something innately wrong with you, that you can't ever do anything right, and that you'll never be able to do things well or to do things in an acceptable way? How do you feel about that? Does it make you angry? Are you disgusted with that? Or do you try to hide it and act like it's not there? If you continue feeling that way, then you are not going to be able to change this pattern, because you will continue to push those emotions down and try to ignore them. And that emotion of fear, because it is so powerful, it will come out. And it's going to continue to come out in this negative self-talk. So what do you want to be able to do instead? Well, you want to be able to have some understanding for that part of yourself. It's not the whole of who you are, that you're a fearful person, but there's a part of you that fears rejection, a part of you that fears failure, or not being accepted by others, or causing harm. And that is there for a reason. It is there most likely from hurts that you incurred early on in your life, where you learned that the safest thing to do was to keep you down, to keep you hidden, and to not venture out to speak up or to act on what you felt like was appropriate action, because it would cause you harm, or it could cause someone else to be punished, or it could cause someone to lash out at you or to ignore you, give you the silent treatment. And so you learned this, that this could be a protective way to handle situations. And then if you can have some understanding of it now, of that wounded part, and that if you could have some compassion for it, to say, okay, I see you. I see why you're concerned. I can understand why this would be important to you. Then you can calm that fear some, and to a degree, and so that then you can be able to see more clearly that you have more power now than you did before. You have new skills, you have new resources, you have just more capabilities than you had at earlier times within your life. You have more capabilities to recover from failure. And you have more people that you can turn to if you get hurt. You have more skills to be able to communicate your hurt to others instead of just totally being rejected. So now when you are clear on where this negative self-talk comes from, that it is a pattern within you, even a neurological pattern, and then also you are understanding why it's there because of the emotion of fear and why you are fearful, the beliefs behind the fear. And then also you are beginning to gain the capability of noticing when the negative self-talk is occurring. And then also you can have the fourth step of having some empathy for that part of yourself that is fearful and that holds those beliefs that have been there for a long time. that were placed there not due to yourself, but due to pains that you encountered in your life. Then you can move on to step 5. And step 5 is to redirect your thinking. And as you redirect your thinking, then you're creating new pathways, new neurological pathways within your brain. Now, here's one thing that is a mistake with this, that first of all, the tendency is to want to jump to this part and to try to redirect your thinking without all of the first 4 steps. So that's one mistake. And then the second one is also to try to redirect your thinking by overcorrecting and going to the opposite end of the spectrum. So if you believe that everything you say is stupid, then by going to the opposite end of the opposite end of the spectrum, then you tend to say, no, I'm really smart. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And instead of believing that you're incapable, then you try to tell yourself, I can absolutely do this. I can succeed at this, and I'm going to be incredible. But you don't really believe this. And so that's not going to work. And also, no one really is at either end of the spectrum. You are not completely a failure, and you're not completely incredible either. So what do? Well, as you are noticing this negative self-talk come up within you, or even come out of your mouth, then you want to be able to pull yourself somewhere in the middle here, where you are recognizing the strengths that you do have. That, okay, I may not be perfect at this, but I can do this good enough. I can make an attempt at this. And it might not be excellent. It might not be great, but it's going to be an attempt. And then I can make another attempt and do it better. So that's kind of how you can counteract and redirect your thinking to pull yourself to this place of empowerment. Not a false empowerment that comes from going to the other end of the spectrum, but it's in the middle where you're recognizing what it is that you can do. You're recognizing that you have more resources, that you have more skills that you can rely on, so that if this, you can look at your preparedness. That, okay, I can do this well enough because I know I have prepared. And that looking at how you've prepared, then you can feel the confidence. Now, did you prepare as well as you could have? See, I can tell your negative self-talk is going to come up, isn't it? That is going to say, well, I could have prepared better. Well, what's better? Where is that bar for better? So you can say, I prepared. And if you find that you need more preparation as you go along, then you can do some more preparation, right? And fill in the blanks for what needs to be filled in, or make some corrections where corrections need to be made. So another tactic that can be helpful for this is to look at, well, what is the worst that can happen here? And then to go from there. The worst is that this person, my husband is going to say, I'm completely ridiculous for feeling the way that I'm feeling. Well, then think about, what are you going to do with that? Well, then you can reason with yourself, well, then I will approach it again and I will try to explain it in a different way so that he can understand the hurt that I'm feeling, or what the emotional need that I have in this situation. So, you're not saying I am going to be able to say this exactly perfectly, and he is going to completely understand, and we're going to be so in love. But instead, I mean, also, you're not going to the other end of, I'm just going to screw this up, or he is absolutely not going to understand me. I'm not going to be able to say it right. But instead, you can be in that middle place of, I am going to say this, and I'm going to see how he receives it. And if he doesn't quite receive it the way that is what I need, then I'm going to approach it again, and we're going to look at it again. I'm going to approach it in a different way. Now, I hope you found this helpful, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. And also, I did, as I mentioned earlier, I have a free resource for you because I've created a checklist for you of unhelpful thinking styles that to help you recognize this thinking, this negative self-talk in yourself. And also there is a chart for you to track your thinking on a daily basis. I will put a link for that below. Thank you for spending this time with me.